Okay, one more attempt. Okay. I don't have much time this morning, so maybe I just have 10 minutes, which would be okay if then in those 10 minutes I were to say something pertinent. Yeah. I have been looking at my past life situation. To some extent, you could say that you could speak of it as a chronology or a sequence of bits of consciousness from a soul perspective. So the perspective of what I have said in maybe one or two videos before. I've got this. It's more than an impression. I have this very strong belief that the soul, our real soul, isn't completely incarnated in this body. So you can invite it in, you can make it stronger, you can make the connection stronger, but that's something that we have to work at. Or at least that's something that I'm doing. Looking at past lives, in combination with that perspective, which I have perceived to be much more impersonal, the soul perspective. And then, I'm trying to sort of make sense of these layers. It's like there are layers in how we incarnate, and some of that actually comes to us as we are now. And what we want, or at least what I want, is for me to have the best possible incarnation that I can have, right? I feel like I owe that to the soul. So in a way, in a good way, okay? It's just a term, just a word. Don't hang me up on that. But now that I have this connection, it feels like how I'm just fascinated also. How can I translate, put into words, how can I alchemize, how can I benefit the world, etc., by, being a part of this process. So there's the past lives, there's the life that I have now, there's the life of the body, the Shakti energy underneath it, and inside it by now, my genes, my family history, and all the rest of that. It's all linked. Everything's linked together. I'm not surprising you, I hope. Crystals are helping, to put the pieces together. So I had this idea, and that's basically what I want to say at this very minute. Here's the soul, okay? The soul isn't really completely connected to what you see here. The soul is partly connected. There's a hunch, there's a suggestion of soul most of the time. The idea being that the soul up there is way bigger and way different and way stronger and way more helpful than we normally would tend to perceive from here. There's my husband coming home, of course. I'm pausing just for a second. Yes, okay, I'm back. Husband comes home all happy because we had printed a little booklet of his poems. So very cute. And we're, distributing that and giving it to friends and stuff. So that's excellent. He's so happy. He's over the moon with it because it looks way different from having little bits of A4 paper printed with your lyrical, expressions or in this form. So, oh my God. The soul as impersonal. The soul is personal. The soul is not impersonal. On the contrary, it is a vibration that's both eternal and personal to each and every one of us. But because it motivates everything that we have ever done, in this life or in any other life or in any other direction. But for us to make contact with it, it's a different world, right? So that's basically what I'm trying to sketch out here, is how do you get from that to this or the other way around? And I have done a couple of hints in previous vlogs where I described that it was my inner child and the pain that the child was in, that in combination with a grown-up perspective right next to it, and a self-care and self-loving perspective that allowed for both of us really to ask for that soul connection to come out. And then this just came to us, really, I should say. And I have tried to interact with that, with this personal perspective that is eternal, this perspective, this energy that is not rooted in physical matter, really. So that's what I'm, just trying to describe. I'm just putting out my, my perspective here. Looking at past lives and the energy and the emotion in them, and I don't really, I see a lot of small connections, and from, a perspective outside the immediate physical, contact, I can see that I have shared with them a lot of emotional, being a part of a web, of a tribe, of a family, giving and sharing and that type of thing. That's exactly the vibration that I was lacking up until, what is it, 4 years ago by now, more or less, when I had my first soul retrieval experience. That's the first reason, the first thing that happened. And getting in the contact with that soul energy through this inner child manifestation type meditation thing was a couple of years later. I'm still trying to, get it all to fit in one picture, and the picture is just getting bigger and bigger. And I don't know exactly where I'm going with all this, but it does me the world of good. So that's why I'm just, putting it out there time and again. Hopefully, somebody finds this inspiring, and sometimes people do. So there you go. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is that yesterday evening, I was sort of contemplating this whole setup again, and I was sort of basically creating a bird's eye view perspective over the chronology. Okay, the chronology being the physical series of manifestations in a physical life with these parents or that tribe or this family or these experiences each time. Okay, so bird's eye view would be a part of me, or a higher self, if you like to call it that, potentially, that keeps track of these events, that kind of keeps the records, okay, of the different events, and that makes sense of the soul retrieval happening to me being born into a family in this life where connection was almost impossible. But also, if I had been able to connect to my parents more, I might have been able to help my mother more than I did, but I might also have died very early because it was hard. It was like many of those type of lives where people aren't connecting to each other. There's, violence and separation and fragmentation and what have you, narcissism and borderline things going on, and illness and depression and all that. Then this is hard. I would have been stronger, but I would have been more fragile as well. So at the same time, that's really hard to, I'm not making all that much sense of that bit of this life so far. I don't really have much use for what ifs. This is the way it went. What can I say? This is just the way it went. So going back to the bird's eye perspective, That's just something I'm kind of postulating, okay? I'm just saying that there should be a bird's eye perspective from which I can nowadays look back on the events and kind of comfortable, because it helps me look at things in a slightly more systematic way. I can make a bit of a sense, there's a sense of harmony in the overall, growth, stages of growth that I can see there, even though a lot of it has been spent in complete darkness, whether I was in a body at that time or not. I don't know. Maybe I will be able to look at this again and again, and then have a better perspective or clearer view of these things. But from this bird's eye perspective, I'm still very much looking down at every event or every experience that I have gone through in this life or in other lives on this planet. From that perspective, to go to a soul perspective that's different again. And I had this strong impression, it was actually just one thing, is that the soul energy, which is complete, sends down into the sphere of the planet I don't know, some type of emissary, some type of presence, and it shatters. It just explodes into fragments. That's yes, I'm trippy. I am completely tripping here. It explodes into fragments into the world, and then there is somewhere at that level, there is some type of agency, consciousness, whatever, that keeps track of where every fragment has gone. And this is actually potentially not something that happens at a particular time, because the soul isn't a temporal entity at all. It isn't spatial, it isn't material, it isn't temporal. It doesn't need time. See? So this is how trippy this gets. So I'm actually glad that I got into talking mode about this, because it's fascinating to me. So from the agency that keeps track of where all the bits have gone, there's still like a thread of agency going down, all the way down to the life that I'm living right now, right here. And once I become aware of that thread, I basically have to say that I am connected to it. And then, because I am connected, only most of the time I'm not aware of it. I'm just, messing around, making dinner as usual, doing my thing. So I'm not involved with this type of trippy stuff all the time. It's just that once I'm aware, that creates a really fantastic sense of cohesion. And there's this, the sense that actually agency is the capacity to be your own agent, being responsible, being a sovereign human being, this quintessential, is something that I've been reconstructing from the ground on upwards for myself, what with, depression and fear and all the emotional troubles that I've been having, and fragmentation, being lost to myself in all sorts of ways. It's also, all of it is also on the psychological level. It's a lot of work, and then hence the stones, because sometimes you really need all the help you can get. But the thing is that it's like, actually the soul is dropping down a fishing line into the incarnation. So, and along the fishing line down, there's the sense, the self. That's the real self. And the self inside us really doesn't have anything much to do with our opinions or even a lot of our preferences, I think, because those can change. So getting a hold of that self inside us is really part of the process. And we need freedom for that and a sense of responsibility. And there's a couple of other things, and love and compassion and those type of things. We need to be free to do, what gives us joy. Joy is very much part of it. So on that happy note, I will close this lecture down for now. Have a great weekend, guys, and see you next week. As usual, always back in business. Okay? Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye.